Hello, everyone. We're back with another wrap-up slash final thoughts episode for The Hunger Games, and I'm joined again by Gaby. Woo!
Woo! Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's always a pleasure to be invited, and thank you so much for having me here. It's always a blast. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite books ever, so I'm super excited.
I forget if we've talked about this before, but is this book, the Hunger Games book, your favorite in the whole series?
It is.
Yeah, mine too.
Because the whole series is amazing. However, nothing beats like the original story, the main story, pretty much how every single one of these characters gets introduced to me. No offense to the other two, but this one is truly a masterpiece.
Yep. And I don't know, it just feels the most intimate somehow because it's ultimately like Katniss's survival story throughout the
Yes.
world. And it's like it does also does a good job of setting everything up for all the big drama in the later books. But I don't know, it's and plus just that whole concept of she's in an arena where she has to fight to the death. How is she gonna get out of this?
Exactly. And what I really applaud the writer is that how she created, especially in this first book, how she introduces the world of Panem to the reader is actually great and breathtaking, because she not only does it in a way that doesn't seem too explanatory, or because sometimes in books you can feel there's like, oh, this is exposition.
Yeah.
Kind of like part of the book. However, in this book particularly, there is not the specific part where it actually feels like that, but like the world unravels in front of the reader just effortlessly. And all the all the descriptions about the places and the people are so well done that even when it was translated to the movie, I like all the places seemed right because they were very beautifully explained in the book.
Yep.
Don't you think?
Oh yeah, like in a way it kind of made it a little, I guess, easier for production to bring these worlds to life because there were these vivid descriptions. And obviously a lot of it can still be left up to interpretation because we all interpret things slightly differently, but still it was like in the book it felt like a real place, in the movie it felt like a real place, not a place I want to visit, but a place. And all the characters just feel like so alive, like they don't, like even like minor characters feel interesting, like Foxface. We never learn her actual name. I don't think we ever hear her speak once in the book, yet she is a minor character that just caught my attention so much in the book, and then even in the fandom, because there are theories that people still talk about where they speculate like what really happened with the berries. Like, did she know what she was doing? Was it really an accident? Like all these things, like with most of the minor characters, like, everyone speculates about the kind of relationship Cato and Clove had, even though we barely see any of it.
Exactly. And what I believe that makes the creation of this character so relatable to a sense, it's because none of the characters are entirely good or evil, but they are only reacting to their own circumstances and how they were raised and then the position that they were in.
Exactly.
And like personally, what I really love the most is how Katniss is written, because she is not the typical all good righteous heroine style um leading lady, but we actually see someone who is hard to get to know, tough around the edges, and someone who not only loves her family like immensely, but someone who is willing to do what's necessary in order to survive, and there is no apologies in it, which I believe that I don't know, I think that it's amazing, and it really kind of like it almost like made can like raise the bar and how to make a character relatable and lovable in their own right. Because yes, maybe Katniss was not like a fluff ball or like of sweetness or of kindness.
Yeah.
However, she is as a character um someone who is like charismatic in its own odd way,
Mhm.
and um very like with severe issues and struggles and like baggage, emotional baggage since the very beginning.
Even like before the arena, she already had a lot of baggage, with the whole her father dying when she was young, her mother mentally abandoning them, having to take over the family at 11, almost starving to death at one point. Like, that's a lot already.
Exactly. And she
That
was like,
itself could be its own book.
yes. And like it also made the reader sort of like hope for her kind of like triumph overall because it's the ultimate underdog. She was the ultimate
Yeah.
underdog because she pretty much beat all the odds
Yeah.
when
She
like
came
quote unquote the odds were never in her favor.
The odds weren't supposed to be in her favor, but she beat them. And she does, and District 12 is the poorest district, and she not only comes from the poorest district, but she comes from the poorest of the poor, because
Exactly.
even within District 12 there's like all this class division, which who people who have only seen the movies don't quite get. It's explored a little more in the books. But because you got the Seam, who are mostly made up of miners, they are the poorest of the poor. Then you have where PETA comes from, slightly richer merchant class.
Yes, and not only that, but how even like that like class division actually affects, it's shown in the books and it's shown also in the movie, but especially in the books, it shows how those slight little advantages here and there that some people were given in case of PETA, how they have such a big impact on who they are as people. PETA is always given. PETA is like, oh, he's an adorable. He has like golden retriever kind of energy around
He
him.
is. He even has blonde hair, so
I mean, yes. And even though they're both from the exact same district, they lived entirely different realities,
yeah.
which like to me it's quite interesting, and it's very well like explored in the books.
Yep. And something that was like a really small detail that's interesting from the books, Katniss learns when they're in the cave and they're talking and getting to know each other, is that even though Peeta's always had plenty to eat, he grew up with his family owning a bakery, so he never quite had to worry about food the same way Katniss did. But
Exactly.
but he said that most of the time they eat the leftovers that are too stale to sell anymore. And Katniss thinks to herself like that doesn't sound too pleasant, because she's like, even though I've struggled all my life to get with food, at least everything I've had is fresh.
Exactly, which I don't know, it just makes you question everything. And talking about questioning, we're gonna go into your favorite topic, which is the love triangle
Oh
between
my god.
Peeta, Katniss,
Okay,
and Gale. Let's go.
maybe that's another reason why I love this first book so much, is because it's the minimal least amount of love triangle drama.
I mean, true.
Like, it does set up the foundation for it in the next two books, but it's like, not as dramatic as it is later on.
Exactly. Like Gale is not there.
Like,
So
he's okay, that's I this is pure like fandom speculation. Like, I have no idea how much truth there is behind it, but I can see it being a thing, if that makes sense. So don't take my quote me and take my word, be like, oh, Alyson said this must be true. But anyway, like, the rumor is that when Suzanne Collins was writing the trilogy, she did originally intend for, like, in a bunch of early drafts, I think she did intend for Katniss and Gale to actually be cousins and for there to be no love triangle. But I guess the publisher pressured, or her editor or someone allegedly pressured her to add it in because, Twilight was really big at the time. We all know what Twilight is
Everybody,
famous for.
I was like, everybody has to love Twilight.
Yeah. But even so, even though it had like some of, the YA love triangle moments in the series, I do think it was handled better than the Twilight love triangle because, even though Gale and Peeta are characters of their own, they are still, supporting characters around Katniss, the main character, and it gets spelled out for us at the end of Mockingjay because they both represent like two different paths of the person she wants to be in the future, and Peeta represents the kind of life she ultimately wants in the end.
Also, I had analyzed it like slightly different because I originally thought that like Gale and Peeta, they both represented different types, like the different types of love that people have throughout their lives. Gale being the teenage love, which is intense and impulsive and sort of like your entire life, or at least to that point, until that point that it's like, oh, my crush, the guy I'm with, very, very impulsive, very almost kind of like fiery to a certain extent.
And
Well,
like on paper, it seems like they would be perfect for each other. And Katniss even says in like the first chapter that she's pretty sure people around them expect them to get married one day.
exactly. However, I think that specific love to a certain extent is a selfish kind of love, because they it's not that they have to leave everything for one another. They shouldn't, they don't have to, they actually don't. But it's I think that type of love, like for Gale, Katniss, even though she was one of the priorities, she was never a top priority for him in general, which, to be fair, with everything in 12, it's understandable why she isn't.
Because Gale also like taking care of his own family, and he had even more siblings than Katniss did.
Exactly. Likewise for her, him not being like a top priority. However, with Peeta, it's a love that it's not immediate. It's kind of like the adult kind of love, like true love, like true companionship, true friendship. It literally stems from them slowly getting to know each other, learning each other's like strengths, actually supporting each other like through thick and thin, and later on learning. And I love the fact that they don't get together immediately, but they have time apart after their initial yes, we love each other, well, like yada yada for the rest of the
that's all capital. Get into Mockingjay and all the depression.
Exactly. But I do love the fact that their type of love is not exactly immediate and it's not exactly obvious. But it is based on, I don't know, like a very strong sense of like trust. Because they literally trust each other with their lives in like literal, like with Gale it's in a figurative sense in a way, but with Peeta is in a literal sense. He almost got killed protecting her.
And then like multiple times, even just throughout this first book, this isn't even counting Catching Fire and Mockingjay, but just in this first book alone, Katniss in her internal monologue talks about how Peeta like just being physically near him gives her a sense of security that she can't remember feeling since her father died.
Exactly. And that is a huge tell on like who she ends up being with, because that sort of comfort and like tranquility and stability, that is like in the long term, that is the type of love that everyone should strive for.
And because even and that was like only, and even then, because they don't know each other that well, but at the beginning of the contrast that with like the beginning of the book, when you see her interact with Gale, and it's like, yeah, they're friends, they're friendly, they get along, they do help each other and trust each other when they're in the woods to a certain extent, but like they still like very easily switch into arguments.
Exactly. And they I like yes, they're like their own independent people, but they're like they how can I explain this? They seem at a certain extent still quite separate, quite like a little bit indifferent towards each other in a sense, a little bit.
Yeah.
While with PETA, she can't. He is a I mean, he has a golden retriever kind of energy around him, and he is absolutely just adorable. I mean, who says that their favorite color is orange, and it's a specific kind of orange is sunset orange.
Mhm.
I mean, any any which is not the typical answer. It's like, what's your favorite color? Everybody goes for blue, everybody goes for red, even purple.
Yeah.
But him picking such a warm color and such a nice like picture, it really like sets kind of like the stage of what type of character this is and what type of influence he's gonna have on Katniss,
Yeah.
not only in the beginning but throughout their entire journey.
And again, I just, and like you said, he's so specific with what kind of orange it is. It's one because he's an artist, and I feel like artists do tend to be that specific with with
Yes.
color, because most people just say blue when there's like a million shades of blue to choose from. But not only him having that specific shade of orange in mind, it's like he's an artist, and also I think it just tells you that he's such like an observant person as well.
Yes, and I find absolutely like adorable of how he actually remembers Katniss when she was younger, when he saw her for the first time. Like how like what type of like braid she had on, even though she doesn't.
And like he even remembers like the exact kind of dress she was wearing too. And Katniss like thinks to herself when he's telling the story, she's like, I don't remember exactly what I wore that day, but it must be true because what he's describing is an old dress Prim used to wear.
Exactly, and that
And that would have gotten passed down from Katniss to Prim.
yes, and that like that Peeta is such a warm and fun character, but also he's sneaky. He's similar to, I don't know if you guys know like Ferdinand the Bull, like the children's book. Who no, because Peeta is physically super strong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one punch, you're out, you're done. Not even two or three, like one punch, you're done. Like he can like literally carry like whole sacks over his head.
Yep.
I mean, I am a weak person, but like, I mean, and what that sort of like very like opposites. He's a painter, he does very delicate work, however physically, and his strength is like almost like, I don't know, like primitive, like strong and ha.
Yep. Which makes
And
it.
like specifically that sort of like both like um like the duality of him makes him a very interesting character, and in my case something that when I started reading and noticing that Katniss was slowly opening up to him, I found myself squirming. I was like, ah,
I know.
like
And like he snuck up on me too, like because I think I've told you in the past, like a trope that I'm just a sucker for in books and movies is the like childhood friend to lover trope. So when I read the book for the first time and the first chapter Gale's introduced, I'm like, oh, I guess. And I knew there was going to be some form of love triangle, I guess. That's what I'd heard, like just through the grapevine at the time. I was like, oh, okay, guess this one's the one I'm going to be rooting for just because that's fallen into that trope. But then, and like Katniss, I didn't quite trust Peeta at first because I'm like, I don't know what this guy's about. Where's Gale? And then, but by the time we're in the cave scene, when same time around the same time as Katniss, when he's telling the story of the first day of school and how they met. And Katniss is like, okay, there's a lot of truth to what he's saying. So if that's true, what else is true? That's when I'm like, I like this guy.
exactly. And I mean, Gale, he's a typical hero. He's nice. I mean, in the first book, he is nice.
Yeah. He's fine in the first book.
In the first one.
Yeah.
Emphasis in the first one.
Yeah. I feel a little bad for him at times, like throughout books 2 and 3, but
No, I don't.
We'll get into that once we start that read along. You got y'all. Anyone who's listening who's Team Gale, I'm so sorry.
I mean, I am not sorry. You may feel bad for. I don't. No.
Oh man. I mean, he also needs therapy though.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, is like he is like he prides himself of being like a hero and whatnot. He is so gullible and so easily manipulated that it literally just shocks me. I'm just like, why? Like, how? Why? Explain now.
It's almost like you're lucky you're cute.
Yes, it's like because apparently his neurons just were not.
Yeah. My mom jokes that like in the book she's Team Peeta, but in the movie she's Team Gale because he's played by Hemsworth.
I mean, he is super cute, but at the same time, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they do kind of play down some of Peeta's characteristics in the movie, which I'll get into more like next week when we're talking more about the movie. But yeah, Peeta's hilarious in the books. They tone down on his humor a bit in the movies, and I wonder if they did that to try and make Gale just look a little better because they had hired a Hemsworth.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, I really wish they hadn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
funny the first time I was reading the series because obviously I was getting into it just like everyone else, and I'm like telling my mom about it, and she's like, "You're reading what now?" So she's like, "Give me that. I need to see what you're reading." And then she reads it, and then she gets sucked into it too. And then she and I both love Peeta, and then yeah, movies came out. So I've told the story of how I've got into the Hunger Games. My English teacher telling us about the book, me saying, "I'm never gonna read that. That sounds awful." Then joke's on me. Now I'm here making a whole podcast, multiple podcast episodes. So
yes,
so Gabby, how did you get introduced / sucked into this world?
Yes, I got sucked into this world. Actually, I got the first book in one of the like book fairs in my school. My school was very into book fairs, and we had about like 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah, I feel ripped off. Excuse me. Because you've told me about this. You're like, I got 3. I choke in my water. Don't mind me, guys. But you're like, I got 3 a year, and we got them all the way out through high school. This is not a good impression of you, but whatever. And meanwhile, I got 1 a year, and it stopped after elementary school. So
I know. Like,
I hope like 6 more at book fairs at least in my life.
No, but like
get on it.
Yes, and I feel like I actually feel super grateful towards my school because I think that they were very, very interesting and very determined to make every single one of the like students readers, avid readers, and they did a great job. And also, I learned that my school had a deal that pretty much made that all the profits from those book fairs, the money was actually sent to charity.
Oh, nice.
Which I always felt that was something like very nice. And also the books were sold to us for cheaper than normal, which was also a great thing. But I remember me buying the first book and then finishing it in a matter of hours, and then being super angry that I had not bought the other 2. So I had to wait for like 2 or 3 months for the next book fair to go and get the other 2. And literally it was just, and I remember I even started wearing like my hair in a braid.
Yes, me too.
I mean,
I braided my hair for like a good solid year and a half every day.
Yes, and when I started, because I mean, braids are amazing, but when I started braiding my hair, the books were not like, I mean, they were not popular yet, in a sense. So when everybody else, like when the books became popular and I was like, oh, there's gonna be a movie, and everybody started braiding their hair, I stopped. So I was like, yes.
I mean,
yes.
I went I remember when I went to the movies to see the first movie for the first time with a group of friends. One of my friend's moms was pretty good at hair, did braid my hair to look like Jennifer Lawrence's in the movie. So that was cool.
That is amazing.
Yep. Good times, very good times. So we went on a very long tangent about Pete and just a few reasons why we love him so much. So now what are like, I don't know, 2 or 3 of your other favorite characters specifically in this first book?
My favorite characters, okay? They have to be Hamish and Cinna. I mean, yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're not technically the kindest characters because they're not, but they really are very interesting and in depth, and they have light and dark, and they have like very purposeful lives in a sense, including Hamish, that he's drunk 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I love about the characters is that, like, especially Hamish, the amount of like emotional baggage that not only being a victor has, like, naturally, but the fact that he has to go every single year picking a boy and a girl and then bringing them to an arena, try to like pretty much help them, and then watch them die year after year. I mean,
And he has to do it alone because he's the only victor.
exactly. So
And I mean,
that really,
we know from Ballad that he really was doing it alone for so long because before that we did know, like, since book 1, that there was a victor before Hamish. We just like didn't know their name, didn't even know their gender. It was just mentioned to us in passing. So, but then after reading Ballad, we're like, oh, this is the first victor. But then, Lucy Gray disappears and we never hear from her again. So that means before Hamish, all the District 12 tributes like had no mentor, and then poor thing, he had to figure out how to do it on his own once he was a mentor.
exactly. I was like, I'm sorry, and Lucy Gray, she died.
She's Greasy.
She bled to death. She bled to death.
No, she's Greasy Stay. She's fine.
No, I really think she died.
I
Besides that,
I know you did. But I am curious, like I've said before, in the movie, like which interpretation they'll lean into for that, because it is so ambiguous in the book.
oh, I want her to die. I'm sorry. I mean, why not? Just because even like if she escapes and everything, it would be besides the point, because her escaping really changes nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really think that it's best that she dies, so her death is not, so her surviving isn't like meh, in a sense.
Okay.
It's weird. And also, I low-key want like Lucy Gray's like ghost just like to like torment Snow
I mean,
in
the
general.
poem that she's parallel to, the little girl in that poem, is kind of a ghost at the end, so there you go.
Exactly. I want Snow to be tortured enough so his fixation with Katniss makes sense.
Yep.
And for that to happen, Lucy has to die.
True.
I mean, but going back to Hamish, I mean, and he also, even though he is rugged and rough around the edges and sarcastic and a drunk, and yes, he's not exactly the nicest or the kindest person, but the fact that he needs to drink actually shows that he is a very emotional and sentimental person, because he needs to drink in order to forget and in order to like as a coping mechanism. So I think that, I don't know, I always find him fascinating. And with Cinna, I mean, who is not in love with some like with I'm sorry, but our petty king. He is the king of petty. He literally, all his creations are purposely to pretty much like do like the middle finger towards Snow.
Yep.
Exactly, which every single one of his creations, and the fact that he purposely asked for the District 12 is like, yes,
Yeah, the district that no one wants.
I
And
mean, why? I mean, why not? If you're a fashion designer and they're about coal, which means fire, who wouldn't want to go with that? I mean, the possibilities are endless, but I get they don't get, they're not as
they're not art.
popular.
It's like the other stylists aren't artists like Cinna.
Exactly, and also with the victors, their surviving chances are next to none. So, I mean, I get it.
Yep, all the stylists want to be part of the career districts.
I mean, yes, but I mean, that has to be a whole thing on itself. However, I think that Cinna is actually the first person that doesn't kind of like underestimate Katniss and really actually treats her as a normal person, and like, I don't know, sees her for who she truly is and pretty much appreciates her, besides Peeta. um
Because I think Cinna, like, he took on the job no matter to be the stylist. I think like no matter who walked in there to be the tribute, I think he would have still treated them with respect because there's that, and I kind of also subscribe to the theory that floats around the fandom that he originally came from District 1, but that's another story.
but also, like, it's actually stated in the books that he actually chose to be the stylist for District 12 after seeing Katniss
Oh wait,
live when she's there.
oh wait, I thought he asked for. I thought they got their assignments before the reapings even started.
No, they got their assignments after the reaping, and
Never mind.
I thought
I was going down then.
No, he purposely asked for Katniss because her spirit moved him.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to pretty much give that little, like, do that little girl justice, because if that little girl was going to die instead of her sister, at least the least he could do was pretty much make her a kind of like living piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, all his dresses were,
I know,
works of art.
Like, I don't think they did the girl on fire dress in the movie justice, because like the way it's described in the book, like, holy shit.
Exactly.
I was that.
I know. I was expecting like a big bada boom, and I was like, it was just a red dress.
Yeah, it was fine.
It was it was gorgeous on the actress, but I was expecting a little bit more oomph.
Like, yeah, because it was gorgeous. Jennifer Lawrence is beautiful. She looks great in just about anything. But
I mean, you can put a sack of potatoes on that woman, and she would still rock it. She would look gorgeous regardless.
But just knowing like the dress that was in the book just makes the movie dress like meh.
Exactly. But like Cinna, everything he did had a purpose. And pretty much it just showcases how passionate he was about life and his craft.
Mm-hmm.
And like also humanizing the people in the capital and humanizing the stylists, because yes, the kind of like the previous victors, they go through the loss of every year of the kids, but also the stylists go through the loss as well.
Yeah.
So it sort of humanizes the stylist, humanizes the people from in the capital, and also kind of makes the reader see the fashion and of the capital something more than just luxury and pure just debauchery, but really have a meaning, which like Cinna and the other stylists, like Peeta stylist, really did all throughout their works with Katniss and Peeta, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And even the prep team, which were cut from the movies.
I know, like, and the book is like a whole team, and the movie is like 2 people. I'm just like, why?
like they're technically there, like they like have cameos, but they're not really named. I think 2 of them have like one line in the Catching Fire movie, but like if you haven't read the books, you don't really know who they are.
Exactly. I think they should have done. Why not? Why didn't they put like the actual styling, makeup and hair people in the movie just for the team? I mean, they would be playing themselves actually, because they are a team of stylists, because they are, they are. But yeah, I think that the movie came a little bit short on that. But like, tell me specifically, what are your favorite characters and why?
So, I mean, Haymitch, Haymitch too, because it's kind of like a new development. Because when I was younger, I did not appreciate Haymitch enough as I should have. Like, I obviously grew to like him as I got to get to know him more in the sequels. But even just what we discussed before, meeting him in this book alone, it's like there's a lot going on with this man because he's had done this whole mentoring thing alone, and this is before we know the details of what his games are like in Catching Fire.
And the actor in the movie did a great job.
What he has, I, oh my, like, it's funny when my dad didn't see the movie in theaters with me, but the first time I like had the DVD at home when I watched it, and he sat down and watched it with me, he like laughed as soon as Woody Harrelson came on. He was like, "This is perfect."
Yes.
And then because Woody Harrelson's famous for being able to play like drunks on screen, but he does get the more dramatic moments in the movie too. It's so great.
Oh, he is such a great actor that literally he could make me laugh and cry with a single sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, actually, yes, he's usually playing quite kooky characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it just pretty much is like, it just showcases how great his range is.
Yeah.
And I think he did a very good job with Haymitch. And also Haymitch in general, yeah, it's like people usually like not pay too much attention to him because he's a drunkard, but
Yep.
he's a lovable person.
Let's not forget his wonderful introduction in the book, because in the movie he's not introduced till the train, but in the book he is at the reaping, and after Katniss volunteers and she's up on stage, he's all like so drunk, and he's like, yeah, she's got more spunk than, and then tumbles off the stage. and
I
it
mean,
becomes, and it becomes like the capital equivalent of like basically if something like that happened for us today, it would be turned into a gif or gif, however you pronounce it, online.
yes.
Like it becomes kind of a joke all throughout the games, like because even on Katniss's interview night when she's twirling, she gets dizzy for a minute, Caesar's like, "Oh, I got you, don't want you following in your mentor's footsteps." Ha ha ha.
But oh, I just thought about something. Don't you think, like, it made me wonder, like, what if Haymitch's constant drinking made him not like a desirable person to be around, which pretty much made the capital not being able to use him
Oh, I mean,
at all.
yeah, because well, at that point in his story, his family had been taken away from him because Snow is a dick. But
I mean, yeah.
yeah, because what if he had been in contact with the rebels for longer, and he just kept up the drunk act, so Capital wouldn't suspect him being up to anything.
Not even that, because I know, like later on in the other books, it is expressed that the capital uses the victors, and also kind of like, in a sense, like almost as prostitutes in a sense,
Yeah.
to the rich and wealthy. And
Yeah.
maybe this was Haymitch's way of protecting himself from being submitted to that type of treatment.
True, because like when we do get flashbacks of him in the when he was a tribute, Katniss is surprised. It's like Haymitch looks kind of good.
Exactly. Like maybe that was his own way of saving himself.
Yeah. Then again, because because
Finico there.
well, I was gonna say the reason Finnick gets forced into doing that is because he has loved ones still alive, and they can
He's
be
pretty.
yeah, they can be threatened. So that's something
Yeah.
that Snow can hold over him, like you do this, or But Haymitch at that point for a while didn't have anyone that he cared about as too, so he wasn't as vulnerable as someone like Finnick was.
Yes, but also kind of like it just made right now. It just made me question, like, Haymitch, like Haymitch reasons for drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he was just bored. I mean, that is also an option. That is also fair.
He doesn't have to work in District 12 because he's so rich. He doesn't really have any friends except for maybe some people down at the Hob that he talks to when he goes to buy his liquor. So yeah, he might just be bored.
I mean, but also is like, I mean, he was turned into a killer. He was forced to be a killer from a very young age.
What was he like,
And
16, 17?
exactly, it's not like something that he did and nobody knew about. It was televised.
Yeah, everyone saw it.
Exactly. And I think that that could also change how others see you.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay, we're going on a list
Yeah.
like rampage around Haymitch.
Yeah, let's just one more thing I do want to say about Haymitch because it isn't until like really the very end of Hunger Games and then like parts throughout Catching Fire and Mockingjay that you really understand how much he does care about people, and especially, Katniss and Peeta, because he basically adopts them. It's that scene.
I mean, adopts them? No, they're like the niece and nephew that he doesn't want in their house, but they're there regardless.
He's okay. That I guess that's a better way. The niece and nephew he has to put up with. But anyway, so after they get pulled out of the arena and Katniss is in like basically bedridden for a couple of days as they try to make her look better so that she's camera ready, because just sweep under the rug all the horrible things she actually went through. No need to address the reality of her situation. Let's focus on the upcoming interview in her dress. But anyway, we learn. So at one point when Katniss is slipping in and out of consciousness, she hears someone yelling outside her room, and she's like, it didn't have the mark of like the capital accent. It sounded like someone from home, so it gave her a sense of comfort. And the only person who that could be is Haymitch. And we realize later that Haymitch had gotten into a big argument with the game makers because the game makers wanted to surgically alter Katniss to give her more curves after coming out of the arena, and Haymitch flipped out on them because, one, not only would you be doing it to a 16-year-old girl while she's unconscious without her consent, but yeah, given what we know about what the Capitol does to victors who are quote unquote desirable, like that is so many levels of fucked up.
Exactly. It was like, if before I loved Haymitch, now I love him even more. We love a respectful king that stands up for their fellow victors.
Katniss is given the dress for the closing ceremonies. She notices there is like some padding in the dress to give her, more curves. And Cinna's like, yeah, this was the compromise.
Yeah. Compromising. I mean, a little push-up never hurts anybody.
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean compromise? It's like, well,
David, like legit, apart from Haymitch, no, like that. Okay, that really showcases how much he cares about Katniss and Peeta, even though he doesn't really like to admit that he does. And also, he's like the uncle.
Yeah, the literal drunk uncle.
Literal drunk uncle. And I don't know, he like, I mean, and I know this is a major spoiler to how they end up, but the fact that he actually moves back to 12 with Katniss and Peeta, and he pretty much sees their kids be born and raised and everything. I know that it's like literally, it's like, yes, it's like, it's Grandpa Haymitch.
Okay, Grandpa, great uncle Haymitch, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, because to that point, he's like a grandpa.
True.
He's grandpa. And also, it's like he never, like, because of everything, he lost his family, and then he was never able to create another because of fear that they were going to be used against him.
Exactly.
And afterwards, he gets to see, I mean, true, he didn't marry nor had kids, but technically he had kids that he did. That yes, through the games, he actually got, I don't know, like a family. that. And he says like they're little kids be born and be raised.
I'm just imagining like, they're like when Katniss and Peeta's kids are like little toddlers running up to Haymitch like Grandpa Haymitch, like, oh god.
Oh, and right now, like literally, I'm literally listening. Give Grandpa the bottle. Oh god. Oh god.
training the grandkids to go to the fridge and get him beer. Actually, funny story. That's one of when I was like start from the age of like when I was like 3 or 4. My dad did teach me which can of beer to get him when he asked me to go get him a beer.
That is awesome. I mean,
dad move.
Yes. I mean,
and like because like the way my house is set up, like a lot of things are on the second floor, including our kitchen, and we have an extra refrigerator downstairs in our like second living room downstairs, and that's usually where all the drinks are. So like growing up, it was always like we're getting ready for dinner, it's like, Allie, go get me a beer. Then as soon as Brady was old enough, I trained him to do it. I'm like, your turn, kid.
Yes. No, but like legit, that just made me love like the character of Haymitch even more. But what was your other like favorite character?
Yeah, it's hard because I mentioned Foxface. I do really like her just because I always just respect like intelligent characters, and her way of trying to win would probably be my best chance of winning. But of course, I can't help but love Rue. Everyone loves Rue.
I mean, yes.
Because she is, the whole point of her character is to die to make us really feel the heartbreak, especially for Katniss, because she compares her to Prim so many times, and because she and Rue and Prim have that parallel because they're both like little 12-year-old girls who got reaped their first year, but unlike Prim, Rue didn't have anyone to volunteer for her.
Yes, but at the same time, it also what I think that it's beautifully done in the series and also in the first book. Don't you think that also was, in a sense, kind of like a foreshadowing of Prim's eventual demise?
Like, oh yeah, both times, because like Katniss was like so close, they were in sight, and she could have.
Exactly.
Oh god,
And
made me think of that.
yes, and not only that, they both died during plans to get to the like to pretty much like what's it called, I don't know, like against the enemy. They were both pretty much casualties of war, like years apart and like situations apart, but they both died. And like, I mean, I love the fact that this book specifically is filled with parallels.
Mm-hmm. And
oh,
sorry.
No.
Okay, I was gonna say, and I think I've talked about this before, how like we obviously compare Prim and Rue because Katniss is, but I think Rue also kind of parallels Katniss a bit because Rue is the oldest sibling from her family, and she presumably took out, and like and the book takes time to highlight like how much Rue loves her family, is protective of them, gives her rations to the younger siblings, just like Katniss. So just like 12 and just like little 11-year-old Katniss did, Rue mentions how back home there's this field she can go to like pick dandelions, just like Katniss. And I assume that Rue had to take out Tesserae to cover her family to make sure they had extra food, because she would take that risk too. And at 12 years old, and Katniss did the same thing at 12 years old. But Rue is like the nightmare come true for 12-year-old Katniss. She's the oldest sibling who got reaped in her first year.
And also could be like pretty much the representation of Katniss's childhood and innocence being murdered in the arena.
Yes.
It would literally be the physical representation, the actual representation of Katniss's childhood and innocence just being eradicated right before her eyes in the most brutal way ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it also kind of like really speaks to how much Katniss because Katniss is she is very, very maternal
Mhm.
and very protective, and how she like puts Rue in like creates almost like a bed of flowers for her as a tribute and everything. It really is one of the most heartbreaking and beautiful images
Yeah.
in the book, because they have nothing, and they have very tough childhoods, and they pretty much have next to nothing. It's like it's very heartbreaking to think that the only kind of like luxury and like quote unquote that Rue had was either in exchange of her for her life, which is in the arena, and then in the arena after she dies, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But talking about parallels, do you think because Katniss had everything against her. The odds were never in her favor.
Mhm.
But I think at a certain extent in the arena, they were.
Like it almost feels like like a fluke, because not only did the arena that she go in happen to be an environment that similar to her forest back home, and not to mention, was lucky to have Cinna as a stylist, and but also just so happens her district partner is someone who genuinely had feelings for her.
Yes, and like I think that Katniss was Snow's own personal kind of like demon. Because actually, like if you think it should have been like it was almost like fate. It was fated for her to be chosen, like for Prim to be chosen, and then for her to take the plate, like take Prim's place, and to pretty much because she was already a hunter.
Mhm.
She was already kind of like not used to, but yes, a little bit to death. Well, I mean, it was animals, but still,
Yeah.
going from hunting animals to hunting people, it's pretty much the same.
The mechanics are the same, but
I mean,
the
that's horrible to think about it, but it
reality is
is.
different.
Yes. And the fact that she was already all the survivor skills, she already had them.
Yeah.
She already knew them.
She and she even says at one point when she's in the arena that she on one of the first nights she makes sure to set snares to be able to catch a rabbit so that the audience can see she's capable and wouldn't be, so wouldn't be easily lured into traps with the promise of food like most other tributes would.
And I think that was like the worst thing for the careers people, because they were trained to fight, but they were not trained to survive.
Like what do they learn at these academies or whatever?
How to break each other's nose like 100 different ways.
I guess it's like, but you never cover, because I'm sure it's even said in the books that most of the time the years that careers don't win are the years where they didn't protect the food supply from the cornucopia well enough, so then they're screwed.
Exactly. Or when environmental factors were like went into place. Similar in the case to how Annie Cresta won. It's
You know,
because they flooded the arena and she was the only one who knew how to swim.
so
How to swim.
technically she was from a career district though.
I mean, yes, but she did go insane.
Yeah. Like I don't know, District 4 is interesting because they're technically careers, but yet they're also the most rebellious in the sense. Like, if I had to guess, I would say they were like the last district to become a career district.
Technically, yes.
Because we'll get into it more in Catching Fire, but it is like hinted at that District 4 is one of the first districts to start rebelling.
I mean, yes. Yeah, I mean, Finnick actually won at 14 with an actual trident.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that has to be badass. I'm sorry, but
I know, like I can't be the only one though who like in middle school when I read The Hunger Games for the first time. This is like after I had finished reading the Percy Jackson series for the first time, then I read about Finnick, and I'm like, Percy Jackson?
Percy, what? Percy Jack, what?
I'm like,
what?
I'm like, Percy, I found your brother. Think about, we never meet
Yes.
parents.
Mm, yes.
Maybe.
Maybe. No, but yes. And like they were, I mean, Katniss in general was going to win, period. And but at the same time, I mean, I don't you think that the game maker purposely made her like a target for the careers?
Yeah, by giving her that high training score, it's because Kato is the embodiment of like toxic white male, privileged male. It was driving him crazy that a girl from, the quote unquote joke district had a higher training score than him. Because like
I mean,
because to him this was something he'd been preparing for to be the best at his whole life, which I question because he only has like a couple confirmed kills that we've seen.
I mean, was that he also felt emasculated by it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you actually have to question Kato's like what type of person he was. And then his last moments are the most heartbreaking because he actually understands that by volunteering to be in the arena, he literally went on a suicide mission to get himself killed by a girl. Yeah. Like actually, like by the end.
I think he has more of a realization of that specifically in the movie. It's not quite in the book as much.
In the book.
But he does still have some humanizing moments in the book. But it's definitely like by the end, like after hours of being mauled by the mutts, where he's like, "Yep, nope, please end it." Like that's horrifying.
That is horrifying, and also
because like they just switch it to night and day, like no problem, and it's like, oh, maybe that lasted. And it feels like, oh, that final showdown lasted like 30 minutes. No, it's all night. Katniss and Peeta listen to him being mauled at and fighting those things, which look like the dead tributes, by the way.
Also, in general, especially Cato, I think that it's actually, I find it quite ironic how he instantly hates Katniss. And in the end, his inexplicable hatred, by the end, it makes sense because she is the one that kills him. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh.
In the end, it was a mercy kill.
Mm-hmm. It was merciful, but I mean, it really just kind of like makes me question how every single one of the tributes feels. Because I mean, it's like going to camp, but
yeah, only when he's going home. And also, just speaking of parallels, I think like Thresh and Kato are even foils of each other.
I mean, yes. However, Thresh, I mean, who knew that him sparing Katniss because of Rue would have gotten him killed? Yeah.
Well, because I'm pretty sure that he's killed because he fights Kato, because Kato after the feast chooses to go after him. One, because Thresh took his bag, and two, probably for some form of revenge for Clove.
Yes.
And because the thing is, like, both of them are like the big, like, physically strong types that people would want to bet on for the games, and both can fight because they're both I do think they're both capable. The big difference is Kato's just had the training. He has had the resources all his life to set him up for success.
Well, Thresh didn't.
Mm-hmm. But that didn't make Thresh any less talented, though.
True. What do you think about Seneca Crane?
Oh, I don't know, because I feel like we don't really see him in the books. Most of my thoughts for Seneca Crane are mostly revolved around the movie, which I kind of want to save for when we talk about that.
I mean, like the only thing I can say about Seneca Crane is like if you analyze the arena, because the arena, like if you want to know anything about the game maker, is you have to understand the arena. And I think like Seneca Crane in general, he was like sadistic,
Mm.
like very,
Yeah.
I mean, and he was very into animals because I mean later in like another, I mean in the other arena, yes, there were animals, but in this one, he actually like the mutts especially because I mean, yes, they like the capital like experiment with things, but he purposely asked for the mutts, which is what kind of sick mind creates the mutts?
like the because like the movies are one thing because they just look like generic hounds, but yeah, they look like the dead tributes.
Yes, and also not only like the bugs that he introduces, but the fact that he starts burning the arena, it's almost like cat and mice kind of like relationship with the victors,
Mm-hmm.
which in my like the fact that he had to unalive himself um afterwards, I think that it was a very I don't want to say just punishment, but I mean there is poetic justice in it.
Hey.
I mean, and also in the movie, the beard in the
I know the
movie
beard.
was
That's what most people remember him as. When I mention the character and people are like, who's that again? I'm like, the beard. And they're like, oh,
oh yeah.
like, got it,
What
that one.
what is your take on snow?
Oh, well, it's funny just calling him Choreo now because after reading that,
Choreo, baby Choreo,
you know, like,
baby core.
I know, like, sometimes, 'cause, like, there have been episodes where I'm like, oh, I don't think Choreo liked that very much, Katniss. It's just funny to, because, you know, when I read the series for the first time, it, no one ever suspected we'd get a book telling his backstory. So I thought this was all we ever got at him. He was such a terrifying villain to me because, you know, he was the embodiment of this scary capital that forced these kids to do all those awful things and sponsored the what the sadistic game makers do.
At the same time, he was not the typical villain. He was not that, oh, I'm evil just because I am. He was actually a very disturbing type of villain because he was very like I mean, you see him oh like especially in the books, and it's like he's an old man. Like he looks like a kind old man, period.
Yeah,
And then he turns out to be like the worst person
I know.
ever. However, he is quite honest. He doesn't lie,
Although
which I appreciate.
we all get into that though in Catching Fire because in this first book alone, he has only two appearances. One at the tribute parade, and then at the end when he crowns Katniss and Peeta the victors, and he gives Katniss like that look as he's putting the crown on her head, and she's like, "Oh shit," because he blames me for what I did for what happens with the berries.
I mean, yes. However, like even though like short, his two appearances are quite striking,
I
don't
know
you think?
because the way just by the way he's described in the book because of like his like snake like stare and just that the way it's described I'm like ooh like I got chills the first time I read it so then by the time you know we see him again in Catching Fire I'm like oh shit.
I mean, his immaculate suit, the fact that he always has like white roses, and the fact that his mouth is always bleeding because of the sores, because of the poison.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me is like, I mean, fun fact. And okay, I'm Mexican. I'm from Mexico. So actually, that's fun fact. Mexico's only dictator, Porfirio Diaz, he also he was also famous for poisoning his adversary, especially in elections.
Oh shit.
He literally was president of Mexico for for about 40 years. And that's how he stayed in power for so long, because he kept poisoning people, but he also drank the poison himself. So he was famous for having sores in his mouth that would constantly bleed. So at least to me, see, like reading about Snow and later on seeing in the movie um about someone who, like a dictator who did that, I mean, to me, I felt, to me, I was like stoked. I was really happy. I mean, I mean, maybe it was not the same, but like seeing like a fun fact of an actual like Mexican dictator, like on a movie that it's non-related. I mean, at least to me, I thought that it was the coolest.
Yeah, that is really cool, actually.
I mean, it's like, hells yeah. I mean, it's quite disturbing,
Yeah.
but at the same time, makes a great villain.
Yep. So yeah. It's him.
And also, his last name is absolutely adorable. Snow. I mean, Jon Snow. I'm kidding.
Jon Snow, Snow White. Like
I
Snow's
mean, yes.
associated with all these nice characters that we love. But nope, not in this case.
Not in this case.
Well,
He's
then again, that's because, Katniss is the girl on fire and fire melts snow.
ooh, and also like literally, it's like Snow's like, let it snow, let it go, snow, let it go,
Let it snow, let it snow.
let it snow.
Oh god. But also something I was thinking about is because we mentioned Rue and we were talking about Rue and then we mentioned Snow, but like also like during Rue's death scene, which is televised, everyone sees it, including Snow. Katniss starts singing "Deep in the Meadow," which is a song that he heard Lucy Gray sing, also to a little girl who was. Well, the big difference being, Maud Ivory was just taking a nap and Lucy Gray was singing her lullaby, whereas, Katniss was singing Rue to death. But there's that, and like I think that's really, and I'm pretty sure I talked about this before, but like that's really the moment I think when it really clicks for him and he really starts to compare
Loath.
to Lucy Gray, because and like music is such an important theme in the whole series, and like even especially in ballad, obviously, because Lucy Gray's a singer like all the time, but by the end of the book, Coriolanus decides to cut music from his life, and then here comes Katniss with a song to sort of remind him of his past. And the two of them like have opposite journeys with music, because Coriolanus is like he's fine with music at the beginning of Ballad, but then he decides to cut it out of his life, whereas Katniss, beginning of this book, she doesn't think of music as being important, but then throughout the series, it becomes more important.
Spoilers, guys. But yes, it's like Katniss is Snow's own personal demon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
He's like,
guys, it's a reread podcast. We do our best. We're doing our best to only talk about this first book, but it's really hard not to.
I know, yes, but it's because it's the first. It's like the door for the entire world of Panem.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also love about it is how it's almost cyclical. It starts calm and it ends calm, like with the victors coming back home.
Exactly.
And it's almost quite cyclical, and also it's, to me, it's like almost poetic in stating that how, like, despite everything that happened, everything stayed the same instead of 12. Yet everything had changed for them.
Yep.
Meaning Katniss and Peeta.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. Okay. What is your favorite part of the book?
Oh, dang it! Why do you do this to me? It's gonna make me sound like a basic Everlark shipper, but I do mean it. A lot of stuff in the cave.
Of course, you are an You are such a romantic, so of
I
course you
know
would
I
pass it.
I know I am, not just because, they're like one of my favorite book couples of all time, and The Cave is when they truly connect, but I appreciate it because The Cave is almost like putting when they're in the cave, it's like it kind of like James gets put on halt, like there's not as much tension. I'm not as anxious as the previous part when Katniss is just wandering around the woods by herself and is like any moment now something's gonna kill her. Um, but they get to know each other as people, and Katniss gets a chance to be a little vulnerable, despite the fact that she doesn't like that, and she doesn't like to be vulnerable, especially on live TV. But she gets a sense of what it's like to have someone like Peter really take care of her, and she deserves it.
I mean, yes. Also, my favorite part of the book is the training before the arena.
Yeah, that stuff is cool.
Not only because it's cool, but it's sort of like it's the perfect setup to like for pretty much part of my French, but like the absolute shit show that's about to like happen, which is the arena.
Yep.
So it's all the preparation, all the simulations that they have to go through, the training, the scores, I mean, I don't you think that's like a little bit similar to how athletes are
Yes.
prepared before big games?
Yep. I mean, the Capitals come a long way since the 10th Hunger Games, when everything was going wrong. Now it's a
I
big
mean, exactly. But I mean, it's almost because I like what I think that the writer did beautifully is how she created the world and took the concept of like the Colosseum and all like ancient Rome and the gladiators and give it a very modern spin and a very like sadistic kind of like
Oh,
spin.
I mean,
Because I mean it is like it's a heartbreaking, a very tragic kind of like turn of events and pretty much what they have to go through. But I mean it is logically quite effective in how they like how a capital could control states.
mhm,
I mean it's brutal and effective.
very. And I'm pretty sure Suzanne Collins has said in interviews that she got her inspiration for the whole concept of the Hunger Games by one night. She was flipping through the channels, and she was going back and forth between like documentaries about ancient Rome and the gladiators, and then reality TV.
It was a great
Uh,
it was a great turn of events that led her to write this book because I mean how she created Panem and all the different districts and doesn't that like marvel you in a sense, you as a writer because you are a writer.
I know.
um
It's like dang, and it feels like such. It almost feels like an idea. Like once you hear it, it feels obvious because like reality TV is kind of horrifying if you think about it.
yes, and what it really like, not only that, but it's like all the characters inside of the world, it's not that they're good or evil, but it's like
Yeah,
they're great. I don't know.
because like you said earlier, when we meet like Cinna and the stylist and all the prep team, it's like, oh, these are real people. These are ordinary citizens who think all this is okay, but they still are nice and courteous toward Katniss, even if they say some things that kind of ignorant things.
I mean, true. And also because I know that you love detail, what do you think about how the writer used fashion
Ooh.
in order to um not only express the like enhance the situation that was happening, but also foreshadow of what's going to happen, but also the fashion to foreshadow the nature and personality of each characters, which would be in the case of Effie or even himself, like even Snow himself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for like Effie and the prep team, like they go like all out with the colors and their fashion choices. Like I think it's Octavia on the prep team who even like dyed her skin pea green, and that just shows that they are just willing to try everything. They got no worries whatsoever. And and then for Cinna, he doesn't want to make a huge show of himself. He'd rather let his work speak for him, so he dresses much more simply. And then in the cases of Snow, you know, he has to look a little more elegant and not quite as frivolous, quote unquote, so he can be seen as serious.
But don't you find fascinating the fact that he mostly wears white?
Yeah, because he wants to be seen as just pure intended thing. I don't know.
An intellectual, and that is pretty much that is the power of fashion and how like people are viewed.
And even just the clothes that Katniss wears, it does kind of have an effect on her throughout the series, because when she wears the Girl on Fire costume for the parade, she gets some confidence. And Haymitch even says at one point when he's trying to prep her for interview night, he's like, I don't know how you pulled the smiley wavy girl in the chariot, but I haven't seen her since. And then and then for interview night when she's wearing that dress, it's almost like she put on a costume and she's able to be a little more outgoing and manages to be charming on interview nights, and manages to like go along with the crazy girl in love acts at the end for the closing ceremonies, when again she's in Cinna's clothes, but then and act like she's so in love with Peta, but then when she's on the train going home and she changes back into clothes and braids her hair again and looks more like her, she's like, now I feel weird acting this way.
I mean, true, but like, I mean, I'm just amazed on because I'm just very grateful of how the writer actually gave the like gave enough credit to fashion and what it does to people, and the power that fashion has over not only people's perception of themselves and others, but also like fashion is more than just simply aesthetics, but also has a reason and a purpose. And in case of Katniss, even the wearing the pin, the
Yes.
Mockingjay pin, it really showcases the power that clothing and in general fashion has, and really highlights it to the best of it, like the best of their abilities. And and also I love the fact that the term fashion in the capital, it is absolute, well, it has absolutely no boundaries. That to me, I don't know, what do you think about that?
I mean, my style is like my personal style is I tend to go a lot simpler. I don't usually like to wear bright like attention drawing things. So for me, I'm like that idea freaks me out. But I do but I guess I do appreciate the fact that people in the capital aren't afraid to be their crazy selves.
And also like I don't know, I always like, especially Effie,
Oh yeah.
I find her as a character absolutely just, it's amazing. She is as a character, she is funny, she is out there, she is a fashion diva.
Oh my god. I remember like when I read the book for the first time, I like especially the beginning of the book, I was like I hated Effie just because, you know, she was the first person from the capital we met in the book, and I'm like, you support this awful thing. But then like as we got to keep getting to know her, like I got excited whenever she showed up on the page, and then I loved her even more in the movie because Elizabeth Banks was incredible. And then you meet characters like Snow, and you're like, oh yeah, there's people more worthy of my hate in this book than Effie.
I mean, yes. Like if you could change anything from the book, what would it be and why?
But it's perfect.
Just as it is.
It's fine. I don't need to change anything. Oh, I know. How about Rue didn't die in the end. Katniss and Peeta sacrificed themselves, and Rue goes home.
I mean, yes, but that would not allow it for it to. Yeah.
I know. Then the rest of the book wouldn't happen. This is just something I think about sometimes. I don't know.
Like now thinking about it, Rue's death is actually quite poetic because usually in wars, the ones that suffer the most and usually die are women and children.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but keep going.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because really everything, especially in this first book, is just feels so right. I have a hard time thinking of what I did. Maybe I don't know. Maybe one or two mentions of the fact this is a kind of a nitpicky thing, but maybe just one or two mentions of the fact that Peeta was also on fire. Like, what does Katniss get all the credit for being the girl on fire? Peeta was there too.
I mean, yes, but I mean, is he? No, Katniss.
I know. Like, I know Katniss is the star, but I'll give a little more love to Peeta.
I know, but I mean, I get it.
Although I do also love the fact that Peeta is not like, insecure or butthurt. He has no problem with like Katniss taking the lead in situations.
Yes, and him, that charismatic king always trying to change the tide in favor of like Katniss and make sure that she survives, and he is fully willing to die without even fighting, so she can win. I mean, that if that's not a very supportive king, I don't know what there is. If in general the book, if you could have like three things that you could either tweak or kind of like
three things, I could barely think of the one. What about you?
Personally, I would have it would have been nice, maybe just as exposition done by Hamish, but I would have loved to know a little bit more about all the other tributes. Maybe not in full, but it's like, for example, Grace Anne, District 7. True. These are her skills, these are her her weaknesses. Watch out for this.
Yeah. Although
maybe I don't know, to at least give a name and put a face.
True. Then again, it makes sense in the context of Ballad that we got all the names of all the tributes and what district they're from, but I did find it a little overwhelming as when I read it at first, because it's like, too many names. Which one is that one from again? Whereas in this book, we only learn the names of, the ones who we need to know about for the story.
I mean, true.
Again, even all the casting news that's coming out for Ballad, and they're announcing all the tributes, which is awesome. And for a lot of them, this is their first movie, because I've checked all their IMDb's. It's great. I think it's amazing for them. But then I see the casting news come out, and so-and-so as Tanner, and I'm like, who's that? Which one is that again? And I have to check my book.
Yes. I mean, personally, I would have loved to see a little bit more about Katniss's mom's journey after the death of Katniss's father, because it only says that she checked out mentally, but I don't know, I wanted to see a little bit more of her trying to be back.
Yes.
I don't know, I think that could have been explored a little bit more.
Yep. And there's even a mention when Katniss is saying goodbye to Prim and her mom but Katniss tells her mom, you can't tune out again, Prim needs you, I won't be there this time, that scene. In the book, her mom mentions, I know. And she said, like, if I had the medicine that I do now, I would have been able to heal myself. So it's like, irony.
Irony.
Yeah.
Well, actually, even though I only said two, that's the only two I have.
Actually, wait, I did think of one itty bitty thing.
Oh.
And that's when at the end where they see Caesar again, they're watching like, you know, the recap of the games, which is like basically a 3-hour movie, and the poor people that have to edit all that footage together.
Oh.
And you know, Katniss does like kind of tune out a little bit, understandably, and she describes it as feeling like she's watching all these things happen to someone else, and also just the line where she says that like when they're watching all the pregame stuff, like with the parade, there's like upbeat music playing, and she's like feels wrong because mostly everyone on screen is dead.
I'm sure.
And and she does like get to, and she mentioned seeing the part of how PETA tricked the careers and was working again, secretly working against them all along. I do wish that she at least mentioned watching like Thresh's death, because it's never like outright mentioned. We all like assumed that he died fighting Kato, but it's never outright mentioned. Like I feel like it's something we still could have seen, and it would have been really cool to see. And because I imagine from like, you know, the Capitol audience viewing perspective, that was probably one of the most exciting moments of the games. It's like them fighting in the field in the pouring rain, thunder clapping in the background, and then cut to Katniss and PETA in the cave, and PETA being like, "Tell me a story about something happy."
So
Choking her braid.
yes, but I agree.
Yeah. So again, it's like little things I would tweak, because overall, like this first book is like, it almost feels like a masterclass in writing, because it's like such a well-paced plot, and even though the book's like less than 400 pages, you learn so much about the characters and the world, and even just within the first chapter, which is like 20 pages, because like the first chapter is Katniss waking up, going into the woods. She mentions her mom, her sister, even the cat. We meet Gale. We're told about the Hunger Games tesseract system. We meet Madge, who should have been in the movie, but and then the tensions build up to the reaping, and then first chapter ends with Prin's name getting pulled. So a lot happens in that first chapter.
I mean, yes.
But it doesn't feel like rushed or like you're pushing through the plot. Everything just feels like it flows naturally.
Like it had a reason why it was written like that.
Yeah.
Just in general, in conclusion, this is such an interesting masterpiece with very like relatable and endearing characters in an absolute whirlwind of a situation, don't you think?
Yep. Oh, and speaking of Madge, she is my favorite character that was cut from the movies. Like, and like what you said about like, and I meant to bring her up when we were talking more about the class divisions a bit, but I do love how like she and Katniss are friends, which is very different to the situation of Lucy Gray and Mayfair in Ballad. But because like in the terms of like the class system of District 12, they're on like opposite ends of the spectrum, because Katniss is from the seam, the poorest area, and Madge is the daughter of the mayor, like the literal wealthiest man, and the Mockingjay pin was hers, which originally belonged to her aunt, but that's for catching fire for us to talk about. And it was like made of gold, and when Gale sees her wearing it when they're dropping off strawberries before they get ready for the reaping, he mentions like, I could feed my family for a week with that thing or whatever. And Gale was kind of rude to her in that moment. But let's not talk about that. But I don't know, because they're like at complete opposite ends of the class system, yet they are still friends. And like Katniss, Madge is kind of a loner at school, and she keeps to herself, and that's why they get along. Right?
I mean, true.
Yep. I don't know. She like I know she's not like quote unquote like a big character, but she still does give Katniss the Mockingjay pin, and it gives her like a platonic relationship outside of the love triangle drama. So it's refreshing whenever she has scenes with Madge.
Yes. But I mean, but not everything can go in the movie, sadly.
Oh, so we should just so what we should do for the okay, I know this is the 10th year, but what we should do for like a special anniversary is just cast me as Madge, digitally de-age Jennifer Lawrence, and just shoot scenes for the movie.
Yes.
Just have me give her the pin and then walk away, and then maybe have one or two conversations with her for catching fire, and then that's it. That's all I need to do.
Yes.
And this is all a scheme so I could just meet Jennifer Lawrence.
I mean,
Can you blame me?
I cannot. I mean, talking about this book and the podcast to such like detail, a grand detail, it's like such an extent. It's been so fun that really after this podcast, I am definitely rereading the first book because
just don't forget to watch the movie for next week, because we got that to look forward to.
yes. And I mean, I know that everyone shades a little bit, though, kind of like the actor that played Peeta. Over, no, I am fine with that, Peeta. We love short kings, and we love. I mean, he does have golden retriever vibe to him, so
He captured like just Peeta's character perfectly.
yes.
Yeah, and you know, a few scenes which I will criticize in next episode, where it's like, where it was a little like meh, but overall that's not Josh Hutcherson's fault. He was just doing the best with everything he was given.
I mean, true,
And,
but I mean, he did a great job.
God, he was so good. I mean, I had a little bit of a crush on him when I was like 7, and I watched Bridge Terabithia for the first time. So when I saw he was cast in the Hunger Games, I'm like, yes, perfect.
Yes.
Also, there's been like a thing kind of going around like Hunger Games Instagram and TikTok. Everyone like in the fandom kind of agrees that if the Hunger Games movies were being made today, Tom Holland would be cast as Peeta.
I mean, true. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
And Zendaya would have ended up being Katniss.
I know. And then you still got your tall girl, short king couple.
I mean, true.
Like,
who doesn't love a short king?
No. Like, you know who else I could kind of see being a good Katniss in like if it was made today? Haley Steinfeld.
No, she's too nice. She's a great actress, but she's too nice. I would like to like hug her. Aww. No, Katniss has to be someone who's like almost like scary.
Okay, so Zendaya.
She's also very nice, very kind. Now I think we would have to go on the road to find the perfect actress, even though she would not be known to play Katniss.
Search for the next Katniss Everdeen. A whole reality show. We're rebooting the Hunger Games. We're on the search for Katniss Everdeen. I just show up and I'm like, can I be Madge?
We're like literally
I've only seen the movies. Who?
Like reality TV, and we do like the confessionals on reality TV. Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, they probably could have done that. Actually, I'm just thinking it would have been kind of funny if there was some kind of reality TV search for the next Lucy Gray, because it would also be a singing competition, and who doesn't love reality TV singing competitions?
I mean, yes. And talking about like Lucy Gray, the new the new casting of Ballad really took me by surprise. It was a very nice surprise, even though I was expecting, because usually you know that in these types of franchises they always go with like unknown, like completely unknown actors, because I think that having unknown actors with those specific roles is the best foot forward, because the audience will concentrate on the fact that that actor is that character, without thinking that it's like, oh, like for example, like, oh, it's Johnny Depp as somebody else. But no, it's like the character and themselves. So like a lot of the casting decisions really did take me by surprise. They're all very, very talented people. I am super excited to see them. However, I mean, they are not, like, none of the actors are like new faces.
Yeah.
I mean, none of the actors are new faces. We
Yeah.
have Hunter Schafer from Euphoria.
Which I haven't
We
seen.
have a couple of we have to change that. We have a
I
couple
know.
actors
There's a lot of
from.
stuff I need to watch.
I know we have a couple like of actors that I think were in West Side Story and besides in general, but I was expecting for new
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah. Although because of that, I might be watching the movie and kind of shipping Sejanus and Lucy Gray just because of those two.
Mm, I mean, you can ship whoever you like.
Listen, I know it's wrong, but I'm doing it in a joking way.
I mean, I would end up shipping Tigris with her own cousin because I mean, Hunter Schafer is just she is a gorgeous human.
She is. I'm actually surprised there's no incest mentioned in the Snow family because I could see them going that route.
I mean,
they're messed up enough. Oh, also, I did randomly think of something that I meant to say earlier, but you know how you mentioned, like we were talking about like Katniss should not have been able to beat the odds because they like really weren't in her favor, and yet it was like somehow she was, and it drove Snow crazy.
Yes.
Kind of same thing with Lucy Gray. The odds were not in her favor, but then somehow she got lucky enough, almost as if fate decided she should win by a series of random circumstances that somehow wiped out some of the competitors she was most worried about.
Yes, I mean, personally, I wanted an actress similar, like physically similar to Jennifer Lawrence to play Lucy, to make the kind of like Snow's hatred for like Katniss, like all also the more evident of like why. But I mean,
what if they like put a or what if they just like put a wig on Rachel to make her hair longer and then just braid it to look exactly like Katniss's?
I mean, true. And also I don't know why, but I wanted someone of Asian descent to play Lucy Gray.
Because in the movies it's like there's like 2 or 3 Asians and they're all in the background. I don't think they say one line.
I know, or like someone like East Asian. It would have been great, actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, like every single person that got cast, they deserve it and they're gonna do an amazing job, and I'm super excited to see them work.
I know. And I'm not ready for the emotional damage in that movie. Just like how I wasn't ready for the emotional damage when I watched the Hunger Games movie for the first time.
Oh, I am ready for the emotional damage. I am ready to watch Lucy die.
We should go together. You dress up as Tigress, I'll dress up as Lucy Gray, and then it'll be like I'm like crying and you'll just be like hee next to me.
Literally, I will bring a huge kind of like sign that says "Die, Lucy, die."
Meanwhile, I'm just like in a rainbow dress, clearly dressed like her, right next to you.
Literally, I mean, and me with like huge boots, like huge, like with like heels, with like massive sign that says "Die, Lucy, die," and after she dies, I will clap.
And meanwhile, I'm just crying next to you.
You bawling your eyes out, I'm like, yeah, die.
It's like my chorus director. He told us the story when he saw Titanic because he was dragged there with like by a group of friends. When he saw it in theaters, everyone's crying when Jack dies, and then he apparently was like, "Thank you," in the middle of the movie.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so we've been talking for almost 2 hours now. Let's not do a 4-hour cut like we did last time. Because we'll save save that for when we're with our other friends talking about the movie, and I have to split it into like 2 or 3 parts possibly. Which is okay because
Yes.
we have more episodes dedicated to the Hunger Games. But okay,
Exactly.
any final
But I think
sorry, go for it.
no, like what's it called? Oh, like I just wanted to say that, like, I know that we've discussed the characters of the book to length, in great length and in great extent. But like I just have to say that it's like, really, this should be like a huge like love letter to the writer,
Yeah.
because she created such a vibrant and amazing like story and line, and like now they're getting like spin-offs and the whole shebang.
And
Because I mean, I think that great writers are and should be celebrated. So I mean, she created a whole universe with, she created Panem, and literally with all the laws, like the dictator, how everything works, every single, like, she didn't gloss over anything. She went in depth, and literally, like, the different families, how, like, the dynamics, why people do the thing that they do, and also the description of the places.
yep.
And I don't know, and like the importance of names, such as Prim being named after Primrose,
Mm-hmm.
and Katniss from like catnip. It's just, I don't know. I've always thought that it was absolutely just,
And even the name Glimmer, because it's a light, but it's a short-lived light, like a little glimmer of light.
exactly. And I'm
She
just,
wasn't meant to have a long life.
I know, and it's just like the only thing I can do to say, like, the only thing I can say is just that it is an amazing book,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an amazing episode to be able to talk about this book in extent with you.
Yeah, I guess like just like a final thought I had, just bouncing off what you said about how Suzanne like doesn't gloss over anything in this book. Just even describing like the injuries that she and Peeta have coming out of the arena, and the capital having to spend like 2 or 3 days patching them up to make them look more like presentable, because like it's horrible, like because Peeta loses his leg by the end. Katniss is deaf in the left ear for like this last part of the games after she blew the food up, and she has scars like in that. I remember in that movie, that big scar in her forehead she got from Clove from going to the feast. That little healing cream healed it up, and she didn't really have it. She just came out of the arena with, like, I don't know, some dirt on her hair a little messed up. But in the movie, it's like she's messed up. She has multiple scars. Like, she's bone thin because they don't eat very well in the arena.
Of course they don't.
Yeah.
And my question is, like, how did they pee?
We don't need. I mean, the only one time in the book that relieving themselves is mentioned, and that's when Katniss is dying of dehydration. She notes that her urine is a brown color, and she's like, "Shit, that's bad."
Okay.
Yeah, you asked.
Okay, on that note.
On that note, like, what do we say after that? Wonderful ending to the episode, Alyson.
Brown pea.
Thank you. And also another detail, I'm pretty sure it's mentioned somewhere, that when they put the tracker in the tributes, it like blocks certain hormones, like it prevents the boys from growing beards and it prevents the girls from menstruating.
Want it?
Oh boy.
I want it. What?
I know. Any other final thoughts you want to mention?
I mean, that really just, it was the cherry on top for me.
Okay then. So on that note, thank you everyone so much for for listening. All the information for the podcast Instagram is in the show notes, as well as the email if you want to send any thoughts, especially for next week's episode when we're talking about the movie. And I will have Gaby will be there, and more people will be there, including Lily, who's come on before and who is also the person who wrote the jingle for this podcast. So yay!
Yay!
And Gaby, your information for people to find you for your Instagram will be in the show notes too.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me here. It's always a pleasure to come into this podcast and spend time with you and spend time doing a thing that we love, which is talking about books.
Exactly.
So guys, thank you for listening, and please subscribe to this podcast. Please follow this podcast every week, because she is constantly uploading every single week. It's a new episode.
I'm gonna be doing this for a while, guys. I got a lot of favorite series. Spoiler alert, the next series I'm gonna cover is like all the books in the Percy Jackson Rick Riordan universe, and that's a lot. So I'm gonna have at least 2 years of material to work with on that one. Maybe 3, who knows?
So buckle up, because you're in it for a treat.
Yeah,
so
you're ready for the long haul here. Whether it's like 2 people listening or 200, doesn't matter. I'm gonna be here taking up space on the internet for a while.
But please, if you like the podcast, please subscribe. Please, pretty much tell your friends about it. Yeah. It is such a nice podcast, and I don't know, people forget about I think the wonder about books and the beauty about them and the beauty about analyzing and really almost, yes, deconstructing the reasons why authors write such great masterpieces. And I think that should be highlighted, because the writers are pretty much kind of the ones that should be applauded in general. But it's my hats off to you for creating this amazing podcast and for choosing great books and overall being a great company and inviting me on this journey.
You are an amazing guest. You give me new things to think about, and you give people a chance to hear a different voice rather than just mine. And you're just fun, and you're just really fun to talk to. Anyone who knows you is lucky.
Oh, stop, you're gonna make me cry.
So bad.
No. So on that note, my dear listener, please, again, like the podcast, please subscribe to the channel.
And I always forget to mention this at the end of episodes, because it's something I need to work on, just promoting myself. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave review, even just a short review being like, this is great or whatever, because it helps boost it and helps other people find it. And tell your friends if they love the Hunger Games and they're craving a bigger Hunger Games community, they're welcomed.
And also, we love, in general, I know that we love reading your comments. We love knowing if you like it, and if you have any suggestions, any book suggestions that you would like in general for this podcast to cover, please let us know. We love hearing about, we would love to hear from you guys. And in general, I love this podcast, and I am so excited to pretty much see what you come with next.
And also, if anyone also has just, I don't know, ideas for a random bonus episode, because I usually do book tags, or even if it's not a book tag, love to hear them, because I do occasionally like to break away to do the bonus episodes. As you know, there's one coming with Gaby again, Avatar: The Last Airbender book tag. Woo!
Woo!
So y'all have that to look forward to. So if you're subscribed, you'll get notified the second it comes out, and you can be cool and be the first to hear it.
Exactly, because dear listener, you haven't seen the last of me yet.
Yeah, she's gonna be popping up for a while. And many more times in the future.
Because you're the nicest, that you keep asking me to be here and to come back, and it's always a pleasure. So it's like, whenever you say, can you, and was like, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, Yeah, and books are amazing. Like, I do kind of miss the days like back when we were in middle school when like everyone was reading Twilight, everyone was reading The Hunger Games, because now everyone's talking about TV shows like Stranger Things, which is amazing, but it's like I want there to be a book that's so mainstream that everyone and their mom has read it again.
I mean, true, because I mean, there is nothing better than like the feeling of having a book in your hands.
Yeah. Anyway, we're bad at wrapping up. Thank you again, again. To if you're over 21 or of legal drinking age, take a sip every time you say thank you. Thank you again. I hope you guys have a great day / night, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.